from Newsweek, FBI conducting multiple Antifa investigations. FBI Director Christopher Wray has clarified to Congress comments he made about Antifa, confirming they were the targets of multiple investigations. Speaking at the Republican-led Senate Homeland Security Committee on Thursday, Wray confirmed that the agency considers far-left anarchist movement, which stands for anti-fascism, a real thing and engages in violent acts and protest. Yeah, you see, these people are saying, oh no, Antifa is not a group. It means anti-fascism. Really? So Antifa is not a group, huh? Well, this one, we showed this already once in the show. Article from War History Online, how communists in Germany allied with Nazis to destroy democracy. Here you can see the Antifa flag on the KPD headquarters, which was the German Communist Party. The Antifa actually joined with the Nazis in order to overthrow the government. That's because the far left works in tandem with the far right to overthrow the government. That's the way it works. Not going to go too far into this article. I've covered a number of times on this show, but I will link to it if you want to find it. Was this issue number 107? For this show, this is we have a new web address, but it'll be RSS commentary /Cale McCullough /issue 107. And so these people have always been a group. They've always been against the government. Since their very conception, they have worked to overthrow legitimately elected governments using a what is called a two-sided boogeyman campaign, or a boogaloo. That's where you manipulate the far left and the far right to fight each other in order to use as cover for the actual overthrow of the government. What you do is you basically are getting people inside of the government that are on your side. And so you fund one side. For instance, you can start funding the far left and then have events where the far left comes out. And this creates a natural response of the far right. The far right will come out, or whoever you say is the far right. So the goal is to expand the definition of far right so that you can grow that group as large as possible. And then when you grow the far right, what you get is you get a equal but opposite reaction where the far left then starts to grow. And then as the two sides start to grow, what you do is you start fights with each other. This gets the two parties to hate each other. So it provides you cover. So you think that it's just the far left fighting with the far right. But the reality is that they're actually working together to overthrow the government. And that's just a cover. So what they do is they get, at that point in time, they get the people to normalize a state of lawlessness. Then you get your politicians who are tolerant to this lawlessness. Maybe they support it. Maybe they just condone it. And then you start to build up your coalition of people, make it as big as possible. And then you, whenever you have a critical mass, then you overthrow the government. This is the research I've uncovered with WikiSpy, a tool for monitoring WikiLeaks sites for tampering by hostile actors, and political bias. And it is called what they are doing is called an electronic boogaloo, or a Civil War II electric boogaloo. This is a electronic boogeyman campaign where they have been, it's a form of cyber warfare. And I am one of the people who helped uncover this. It's actually a real legitimate war tactic. So the Antifa has been using this. They are allied with the Chinese. They are. They think that if you're against the Chinese, then you're racist. And so therefore, they are in favor of Marxism. They are in favor of communism. So this is why they are allied with China, is because Chinese own a lot of businesses. They have 1 billion people. They're one of the world's superpowers. And so they have assets in America. The Chinese Nazi Party has businesses in America that they control. And these businesses will prop up people from the far left. And they will fund the far left to fight the far right, because the Chinese are trying to overthrow the U.S. government. They've always, this is a cyber warfare campaign, dude. Chinese are doing all kinds of manipulative stuff on. Now hold on. Chinese government. The people of China are not like that. The people of China are good people, and they do not support that, and they do not want to have their name attached to that. But it's the Chinese Communist Party that's doing it. That particular group of people are on their deathbed, or the Chinese Communist Party can get taken out very easily. Right now, they're extremely weak. They have pretty much almost written off Hong Kong as being, they're going to lose it. But they're hanging on by a thread in mainland China. The people don't actually support that. The people are very politically incorrect there. They make fun of social justice warriors. They don't talk about politics, but when they do, they think the Americans are nuts, and they think it's funny. So when I say the Chinese, I'm talking about the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese quote unquote Communist Party. They are a national socialist structure. They have hundreds of millions of impoverished Chinese out in the countryside. They have an extremely steep social hierarchy that they basically use the countryside for slaves and the Uighur Muslims. They have millions of Uighur Muslims in concentration camps. They have filthy, stinking rich Chinese that they allow private property ownership there. You can't have communism and private property ownership. They're mutually exclusive. But they said, no, this is a new, more evolved form of Marxism. Really, that's what they said with Nazism. They said Nazism is a more evolved form of socialism, where you could have private property. And then we'll compete for the top slot. So it's a meritocracy. Right. And then Xi Jinping says he's got this different kind of Marxism, but looks functionally identical to National Socialism. They have a dictatorship where led by someone who looks almost exactly like Winnie the Pooh. And they're trying to be the world's number one superpower. And they're all about ethno-nationalism. They think that Chinese are superior to other people. But that's just the Chinese Nazi Party. That's not the general people of China. Generally, the people of China are lovely people. So do not conflate the two things. What is this article about? So the FBI investigations into Antifa. Going back to that one, during a previous testimony before the House on September 17th, Ray said the FBI did not consider Antifa a group or an organization, but rather a movement and an ideology. Couldn't you say the same thing about Nazism? Right? I don't know, man. The two things are they're very similar. It definitely seems like Antifa is an ideology. They're like, oh no, we're against the far right. We're the far left. And so that makes them a group. They're, hold on, a movement and an ideology. So let's try to say, let's put this in the terms of the neo-Nazis. So are neo-Nazis not a group? Okay. And are they an ideology? Okay, so neo-Nazis are a movement, they're an ideology, and they're a group of people. Antifa is a movement, it's an ideology, and it's a group of people. It's definitely a group of people who say, I am Antifa. In fact, they even have websites where they have leaders of these groups. Within hours, Ray's marks were attacked by U.S. President Donald Trump, the king of memes, who was trying to get Antifa listed as a terrorist organization. Thank goodness. At least Donald Trump does the right thing when it's unpopular. Quote, and look at them as a bunch of well-funded anarchists and thugs who are protected because of Comey Mueller-inspired FBI is simply unable or unwilling to find their funding source and allows them to get away with quote-unquote murder, Trump tweeted, quote-unquote law and order. Explanation point. Ray has now confirmed to Congress that FBI considers Antifa a threat and the movement is subject of multiple investigations. Let me try to be as clear as I can about that. Antifa is a real thing. It's not like a fiction. We have seen organized tactical activity at the local and regional level, and quote, Ray said, I don't really think they just think of them as being like, oh, I'm against fascism or anti. There's a difference between being against something and being anti. So when you say you're against racism, that means like you're not for racism. That's not the same thing as an anti-racist. An anti-racist is a very specific breed of people. They are very hateful and mean. They think they're justified in being an asshole because you're a privileged racist white male. And so that justifies them berating you, belittling you, insulting you, assaulting you, getting you fired from your job. And they oftentimes will jump to a conclusion based off of a knee-jerk reaction. So they'll think so they're always looking for the privileged white male to attack. And so when they think they found the privileged white racist male, they will pounce on them to attack. And when they do, they often are wrong. They'll for instance, they'll debate with me, and then I will debate the other side, and they won't be able to respond because they're like hardly ever able to like have any debate points. Everything what they say is like an opinion, emotion, some sort of regurgitated fake news story with a game of telephone. And so they think that they like know all of this stuff because they've been to some protest and they've talked to a few people at the protest, but then they never talk about this stuff to real people in the real world. It's only in these groups of fake people where they're all believing fake news, where they're all saying their token anti-racist statements in order to virtue signal so they can be a part of the in-group. They think they're like, oh, this guy's arguing the other side, so that means that he must be a racist. In reality, these people are just fucking stupid. They're actually just idiots. They can't debate for shit. Most of what they believe is based on fake news, junk science, and then they just made it up. It's like it's a game of telephone where like they heard some misinformation. And then they try to parrot it. They're like, no, I watched a YouTube video on this. I know all about it. And then they try to say this shit. And they sound like bozo. Say bozo as fuck. And they really do need to refine their debate skills because they suck. They're pathetic. They're miserably pathetic. What does this have to do with this? But they are very much so a group. It's not just an ideology. It would be like, I mean, maybe Christianity is a good group to compare to because we know Christianity is a group of people. So let's say the Christians are not typically on the side of Antifa. They're typically on the side of right, but it's a group of people. We can conceptualize them. So we could say, let's say it's the Christians who are out. It's not Black Lives Matter. It's the Christians who are out doing this in a parallel universe. And so we would say, okay, well, is it an ideology? Yes. It's Christians, all right. Is it a group of people? Yes. Do they are they a group or an organization? Yes, they're a group of Christians. Okay, so let's take this, come back to the real world where the Christians are on the side of right. So Antifa, are they where is this group of people? Can we put a location as to where Antifa are at? They're mostly white. All right, so we've got a skin color. All right, what's their age group? Mostly young people. Okay, where do they live? Most socialists live in big cities. Vast majority of people out in the countryside are capitalist. They're diehard capitalists because in the big city, you could maybe get by with socialism, but in the countryside, there's not enough people to give you a handout. They're physically, the people aren't there. They don't actually have the money to give you a handout. This is why capitalism doesn't work, socialism does not work in the countryside because the economics don't support it. That's why socialism is a miserable failure because it just doesn't work. It requires you taking from other people stuff that they don't want to voluntarily give you. That requires violence, requires authoritarianism. You cannot have communism without being far right. And once you've gone far right, you can't be a communist. That's why the entire thing's a fail. So we can pinpoint the location of these people. We can pinpoint the age group of these people. We can pinpoint the skin color of these people. And we can identify what party they vote for. They are a group of people. It's not just an ideology. It's a group of Democrats and people who are far leftist who associate with Democrats. It is not Republicans. It is not Black people. It is not Latinos, even though they might have some Latinos and Black people there. The vast majority of them are socialist punks from the cities. So yes, they are an organization. Do they commit acts of terrorism in cells? Do they have cells of people that commit terrorism? Yes, by all stretches of the imagination. They have busfuls of terrorist, anarchist, punks, socialist scum from the big cities, and they bus them in. In fact, one of the bus even said riot kitchen in one of the stories. The police had busted them. They had a van or a bus with riot kitchen on the side, and they were going into the Kenosha race riots to have their race riots. And then the cops got their supply van. They went to go fill up, and these guys are all filling up on jugs of gasoline so that they could set stuff on fire, and then the cops bust them. So they do have cells. They have official groups. We just named one. Riot Kitchen is an official group of anarchist, terrorist Antifa. Ray now has confirmed to Congress that FBI considers Antifa a threat, and the movement is subject of multiple investigations. Quote, let me try to be as clear as I can about that. Antifa is a real thing. It's not just fiction. We have seen organized tactical activity at local, regional level. And quote, Wraith said, and if you've been watching this show tonight, you obviously, if you've been paying attention to this show, which I know vast majority of people aren't, we've been covering the riots here on this show all summer. There are hours and hours and hours of riot videos. If you would like to go back into our archive, it's been an interesting summer. This is the norm to cover riots and stay up all night and just do like 5 to 8 hour shows long on riots and cancel culture. And so the tactics have been escalating. I'm definitely noticing a lot more weapons coming out from their side. It's a norm for them to have lots of weapons. So don't fuck with them. Definitely don't fuck with them. I personally, hold on. So I live in Eugene. I used to throw huge raves in Eugene, and I don't want to say everybody knows me because I'm older now, and but a lot of people know me. I'm Crazy Kale, the dude who used to dose everybody at the raves. So I have been getting targeted for harassment, bullying, and I definitely don't feel safe to go out to bars anymore. Although I'm going to say that with the caveat of I have gone out to the bars a few times and the people have been chill, and I did not feel like I feel like Oregon is actually a red state. It actually, we got loggers and country people out all over the place in Oregon. This is not a blue state. The people have been voting for Democrats here because they thought they were good people and they thought they were working in their best interest. But now people are definitely on my side. I definitely am getting a lot of people come out and say that they're on my side and that they're very thankful for the work that I've done, which keeps me going. In fact, somebody who had doxed me on some anti-racist channel messaged me today, and she said, I'm on your side now. And they're coming around. I even got an African-American friend of mine to be a Republican. Yes. But I do feel like when I'm at the bar, there's going to be some Antifa Nazi going to come up and shank me up in the back, or kill me, follow me out to my car and shoot me. So, are those fears warranted? Yeah. There's a bunch of psychos. Even if you're not in my position and you're on a YouTube channel and then you say critical things, you'll get these psychos that they want to kill you just because they are have anger management problems and you pissed them off in your video. I've definitely pissed off a number of people through this YouTube channel, so there are definitely a number of people that would like to shank me. I'm definitely well aware of that. Definitely well aware of that when I started. But the fact, hold on, I don't know if that's a fact. The truth is that I used to be extremely depressed because my son was kidnapped by his grandmother, who held him in a hoarder house, and then I had to fight through court through this crazy third-party custody battle because she got custody of my kid from saying that I used a baby monitor at my house and that I had friends over and that we were hanging out in the house while my son was taking a nap in the studio behind the house. Or we were in the studio behind the house and the kid was in the house taking a nap. And then I yelled at the grandma and threatened to stop talking to her. And so her daughter had neglected my son. And then the courts gave her custody of my kid because of we were using a baby monitor and telling her I was going to stop talking to her, calling her a bitch. And so this is why I really despise Democrats, because they believe in fairness as their primary virtue. I'm talking about Steven Pinker's universal moral of fairness. Famous Harvard psychologist did studies that showed that there's 6 different classifications of morals that everyone around the world shares. There's fairness, cleanliness, group loyalty, authority, and self-protection. All of the morals that we have are in one of those 6 categories. Democrats, they prioritize fairness above everything else. This is fundamentally why they're extremely dangerous, because fairness is a drug. When you think that people aren't being fair to you, it can make you turn violent. It can cause you to commit felonies, and it's because you think that you're justified because the other person wronged you. They took something from you. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. And what does this have to do with this? So this is the most dangerous reason, the biggest reason why Antifa is a dangerous threat is because they have the mindset of everyone else is a tyrant but me. So that justifies me being a tyrant. Yeah, it's an age-old element of human nature that these people fall into, that they don't actually understand that they're engaging in this incredibly toxic behavior pattern because they think, no, I'm fighting on the side of right. Nazis also thought they were fighting on the side of right. The reason why Nazis did what they did was because they were trying to rapidly grow to the size of Russia and the United States. That was the goal of the Nazis. I've done extensive research on this. It is beyond a reasonable doubt. The Nazis justified the atrocities that they did in the name of growing as large as Russia and the United States because they viewed Russia as a significant threat, because Russia was the USSR was mass slaughtering people, like committing genocide after genocide after genocide. Like the Jews were just one genocide that happened during that period of time. There was a lot of people that they killed. It wasn't just the Jews. They didn't kill the Jews because they were anti-Semites. They killed the Jews because they were psycho killers. They were psycho killers because they were anti-Semites, right? So this is the same thing with the Antifa. The Nazis hated the Jews because they were white supremacists. This has been whitewashed out of history because the Jewish people run the Holocaust museums, so they wrote the history books on it, and they alleviated all guilt of themselves during that period of time. And so the Nazis, Karl Marx was a rabid white supremacist. He was the one who invented Marxism. They advocated for genocide during that period of time. 1932 to 33 was the Holodomor famine massacre, where the USSR, led by the Bolsheviks, who were the heads of that organization, were Jewish. They committed a famine genocide in the Ukraine, killed almost 12 million people. was 7 to 10, upwards to 12 million people died in a famine massacre. This is why the Nazis did what they did. That's why they locked the Jews up in the concentration camps, because they were political enemies. They built the concentration camps for political enemies. And they thought that they were justified in killing the Jews because the Jews thought that they were superior to them. And they said, no, we're Aryans. We have the most sophisticated technology on earth. So therefore, that makes us the master race. And that's the slippery slope that they went down. They said it's okay to take the Jews out because they're white supremacists. And that justifies what they did. And so this is the same thing that Antifa is doing. They're saying that it's the privileged racist white males. It's the racist Republicans from those poor rural states who are holding down the minorities in the big Democrat-run shitholes because it's a scapegoat. It's a scapegoat. They can just constantly blame the white man. Oh, you down in poverty, up in the hoods, up in the big city. It's the white man's fault. He's the reason why your kids have a bad attitude towards education, why they failed in school and they keep getting kicked out. It's the racist white man's fault. It's my fault because I'm a privileged white male. And so then, therefore, that justifies them attacking me. That justifies them killing me, because if they do, they'll just take me out. And then they can take whatever I had and then rise up the social hierarchy by making people like me go down the social hierarchy. This is fundamentally why these people are terrorists. They do engage in terrorism, and it's because they think they're justified in it. They think they've already killed so many of our people that it's okay for them to kill one of ours because we deserved it from all of the things that somebody else did. That's exactly what the Nazis thought. That is exactly to the core, to the T. All of the T's crossed, all of the I's dotted, all of the Q's got the line, and it isn't a P. It's the line's on the right side. That's exactly what the Nazis thought. The Nazis thought, oh, well, the Jews, they're the ones that are controlling the world, and they're white supremacists, and they have all the money and they're not sharing. And that's the reason why we're poor. That's the root. Hold on. The root of anti-Semitism is Christian superiority. It's not actually, it's not actually whatever they're saying that the Jews did. That's just what they made up. Really what it is it's like a battle for the Christian dominance over the Jewish dominance. And so in Hitler's last political testament, which I think is a fascinating read, definitely you should read what that guy wrote right before he killed himself. It is very, very clear why they did what they did. And it was because they thought it was in the best interest of the German people. And just Hitler was trying to justify everything he did in there. And what does this have to do with Antifa? They're justifying it because they think that the ends justifies the means. That's the just of Nazism, is they thought that the rest of the world was so bad, everybody else is a tyrant but me, that they had to take over enough land to be the size of Russia or the United States, because if they didn't, Russia, the USSR, the Reds were going to come in and annihilate their people. And that's why they did it. It wasn't because they hated Jews. That was not the reason why they did that. That was what they did. That's how they got people to start rioting. It's fascinating when you start looking down into the history of World War II. It parallels the United States in almost every way. It's freaky. It is freaky. So we got to stop. We got to shut down Antifa. They are Antifa Nazis. They're anti-fascist Nazis. What's this next quote? It says, I'm going to leave one last paragraph here. It says, quote, "We have seen Antifa adherents coalescing and working together in what I would describe as small groups and nodes. I would describe them as terror cells and lone wolf cells." Ray said, adding, "The Bureau is conducting multiple investigations, quote, into some anarchist violent extremists, some of who operate these nodes, end quote, such as the Rose City Antifa." He said, quote, "We're going to be looking, and we have been looking, at their funding, their tactics, their logistics, their supply chains, and we're going to pursue all available charges, period, end quote." Ray added that the fact the FBI has found logically organized activity does not, quote, diminish how serious and dangerous it is, and quote, "We don't view how nationally organized something is as a proxy of how dangerous it is. Yeah, exactly. Just because they're like loosely organized does not make them any less dangerous than somebody who's strictly organized. Yeah, it's just functionally, it's the danger is the danger. How it was organized is definitely irrelevant almost, because it's like the censorship that they have on social media right now. In fact, we're going to go into censorship here in a little bit. Just wow, how are you? We're about 4 hours into the live stream. How many more we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to have to take a break because I'm at 4 hours into the show. Let me give me like 5 minutes, and then I'm going to come right back, and I'm going to finish these articles as fast as I can. Holy crap. Last time I did the show, it was on the 15th. And then it was a similar show. It was very, very long. In fact, some of these articles are even articles that I didn't read on the last show. And yeah, I definitely can't go 10 days without doing a show because obviously the articles back up. But I do need help running this channel. I am looking for other commenters who can do a RSS commentary with your name, and I'll supply you with all the files. And there's just so many of these stories. Like, I need help reading these stories. So if you know anybody who is a good media personality, you should DM me on Twitter at RSS Commentary. Although my account's locked, hit me up on Facebook, Kale McCullough on Facebook. So I'm going to take a real quick break and then come back because I'm human and I can't just keep going forever. But I will keep going till the end of these stories.